Hello and welcome to Natna News Stream, bringing you the latest developments from Eritrea, Africa and around the world, keeping you informed and connected to the truth. These are today's headlines. Eritrean delegation calls for reforms at AU summit. Sudanese army recaptures al-Rahad from RSF. UN accuses M23 rebels of executions in DRC. Sudan paramilitary kills hundreds in White Nile. UN calls for calm in South Sudan amid clashes. US and Russia hold talks in Saudi Arabia. Delta plane flips upside down upon arrival in Canada. European leaders warn against Ukraine ceasefire without Russia peace deal. News in brief. The Eritrean delegation at the 46th Ordinary Session of the African Union's Executive Council stressed the need for revitalization, Pan-Africanism, and reforming AU mechanisms for conflict resolution. The delegation emphasized that the AU must uphold its commitment to addressing Africa's challenges with African solutions, calling for stronger structures and resources for peacekeeping. They also highlighted the financial constraints faced by the Union and urged a focus on domestic resource mobilization and prioritization of activities. Additionally, the delegation insisted that Africa must secure a stronger position in global affairs. They urged AU leaders to develop strategies that elevate the continent's influence in international decision-making. The delegation concluded that AU programs must prioritize the needs of Africa's 1.4 billion people with a particular focus on reducing poverty and fostering sustainable development. The Sudanese army has regained control of the Al-Rahad in North Kordofan state after intense battles with the Rapid Support Forces. This marks the second major victory for the army in 2 weeks following the retaking of Ruoba. Army sources reported that their forces advancing from Rufah in Al Jazeera, inflicting heavy losses on the RSF and seized several combat vehicles. The battle was part of a broader military push to reclaim strategic areas. Al-Rahad, an important railway hub and agricultural market, had been under RSF control since the early stages of the conflict. The Army's mobile Al-Said force has been steadily advancing, backed by airstrikes that targeted RSF convoys. Military officials stated that 3 high-ranking RSF commanders were killed in drone strikes, dealing a significant blow to the paramilitary group's operation in the region. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk has accused M23 rebels, reportedly backed by Rwanda, of committing atrocities in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. His office confirmed incidents of child soldiers being recruited and reports of summary executions, including children. The rebels recently seized control of Bukavu, raising further concerns about the humanitarian situation in the region. The UN also received reports of arbitrary detentions and forced repatriation of Congolese men fleeing violence. In response, the UN Human Rights Council launched a commission to reinvestigate crimes committed by both the rebels and Congolese government forces. The international community has called for urgent action to prevent further human rights violations. The paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, have reportedly killed over 200 people in a brutal 3-day attack on villages in Sudan's White Nile state. According to emergency lawyers, an organization tracking war crimes, RSF fighters carried out field executions and attacked civilians attempting to flee across the Nile. The Sudanese government later reported that the death toll had climbed to 433, including infants. Eyewitnesses described scenes of RSF fighters on motorbikes indiscriminately shooting at residents. The Sudan Tribune reported additional casualties on Monday, with dozens more killed and injured. The ongoing conflict between the Sudanese army and RSF has led to mass displacement, worsening the humanitarian crisis in the region. The United Nations has urged peace following renewed clashes between South Sudan's national forces and armed groups in Upper Nile state. The fighting, which erupted on February 14 and 15, has resulted in civilian casualties and injuries to a UN peacekeeper. The UN mission in South Sudan expressed concern over the deteriorating security situation and called on all parties to de-escalate tensions. South Sudan has faced persistent instability since gaining independence in 2011, with violent power struggles and ethnic conflicts undermining peace efforts. The UN has refrained from naming the armed groups involved but emphasized the urgent need for dialogue and a return to the peace process. The United States and Russia has held diplomatic talks in Saudi Arabia concerning the war in Ukraine today. This marks the first in-person meeting between the two nations since Russia's full-scale invasion 3 years ago. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, but Ukrainian and European representatives were not invited to the discussions. The U.S. described the talks as exemplary, assessing whether Russia is genuinely committed to negotiations. Meanwhile, Russia stated its intention to normalize relations with Washington. However, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky dismissed the meeting, emphasizing that no discussions about Ukraine should take place without Ukrainian participation. A Delta Airlines jet flipped upside down upon landing at Toronto Pearson International Airport, leaving at least 18 passengers injured. The CEO of Greater Toronto Airports Authority, Deborah Flint, stated that although the injuries were relatively minor, 17 passengers were transported to local hospitals. She emphasized that no lives were lost and none of the injuries appeared critical. Later, an 18th passenger was also taken to the hospital for further medical attention. Flint acknowledged the efforts of emergency responders, stating that their preparedness and training played a crucial role in ensuring a safe outcome. She expressed gratitude for their heroic work in handling the emergency. European leaders have issued a warning against a fragile ceasefire in Ukraine without a formal peace agreement with Russia. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky cautioned that such an arrangement would merely serve as a prelude to another war, potentially putting Ukraine and other European nations at risk. Officials confirmed that European leaders are prepared to offer security guarantees to Kiev, ensuring its stability amid ongoing tensions with Moscow. The security commitment was discussed at a meeting in Paris led by French President Emmanuel Macron, following U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to exclude European allies and Ukraine from negotiations in Saudi Arabia. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte stated that Europe is ready and willing to take the lead in providing security assurance, though the specifics are not yet determined. A European Union official reiterated that leaders are prepared to examine security measures based on the level of American support. Well, that concludes today's edition of Natuna News Stream. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.